Yeah.
Almost implying that the experiences that has benefited them that they're now teaching us don't work anymore. And I know that each of us have said to our children at some point, you've never been my age, but I've certainly been your age before. And so there's this notion, and it's pervasive, right? Not only did it apply before us, but it happened to us, and it's going to happen with our children. It's going to happen for our children's children, is that we never think they know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Never think they know what they're talking about. And so we dismiss what our parents said, and then finally come to understand that there was some value in what they said. And our kids are doing us the same way, and their children will do the same thing for them. And so it's just important that we continue to impart, even if it don't feel like that it's taking shape at the moment.
The funny part about this, Sylvester, is that when you use a word that I use a lot, and the word I use is value, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason that I use the word value a lot, especially when I'm talking about relationship, is that the value of the relationship sometimes shows the depth of the listening or the concern that you have. And I know we've been focusing a lot of our attention on what happens to our children, but for me, the insight that I take away from this is that who am I pouring into, right? Who am I sharing my hangups, my setbacks, my failures with, to try to help them during this time? Because we all know that when you leave from out of just being a having a service job, being a worker on the line, and if you're fortunate enough to begin to be in a position that there are not a lot of Black people at, it don't take you long to figure that out. You go to your first meeting, you be the only one there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or you get there and you're the only male there. So you begin to see that you're no longer in the same spaces. But then when you run across another person who looks like you, they're not willing to pour into you or help you or even guide you or even give you wisdom. I remember I got one of my first professional jobs, and I used the people who would nod their head when they see me, almost as if they were accepting me, right?
Mm-hmm.
During that time. But then there were other people who wouldn't even look at me or give me the time of day. And I felt like instead of they were teaching me, if I was to act like them, the dumber I could get.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that there was one janitor at this job, and I would always show up to work 15 minutes early. And one day I came in about 8:15, and the next day he saw me at my regular time. He was walking through our offices and he was dumping the trash, and he said, "Yeah, I saw you was a little late yesterday." And I said, "I was running a little bit behind, had a couple things going on." He said, "Yeah, they remember too."
Wow.
And so he told me, "Son, don't you ever do that again. You set the precedent, live within the precedent. The precedent is that they can count on you to open the office up. You always be here to open the office up." And I understood what he was trying to say, but at times I'm like, man, whatever, man, you a janitor, right? I remember there was a time in my life where I would have blew him off.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his position, I wouldn't have gave the wisdom that he gave me any space. But again, sometimes the more that people teach you, it ain't the dumber that the person who's telling you get, it's the dumber I got myself.
Mm-hmm.
For not recognizing who had my best interests at heart. And this is what this all turns around to. See, the insight is, who has your best interests at heart? Who has a value stake in your success? And at times I think we forget. So I just want to be reminded who has a value stake in my success. And the insight I want to take away today is, and I want to give away today is I want to have that same type of insight, not only in my own children, but for others who stand in need of that type of guidance.
Mm-hmm. That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah. And let me just offer a tidbit. Again, we're talking about foresight, right? And so the foresight that I get from this is, one, that knowledge is transferable and retained. right? So that knowledge will be transferred, but then the person that's transferring it, it will still be retained with them. But in addition to that, we all continue to grow. We all continue to get wiser. And we all, when we have a desire to help others, we all continue to look for opportunities to help those that we love and care about.
Well said, Sylvester. That's well said. Come on, Todd, give me something.
I'm just thinking, some of you had mentioned when we were talking about hindsight. Now we done shifted gears. You had mentioned like this generation adults are sometimes throwing in the towel on young people, and I'm just wrestling with like, what type of person or what makes a person throw in the towel? Because going to hindsight and I bringing it to insight right now, our elders wouldn't throw in the towel on us, man. That wouldn't even no option.
Never.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're exactly right. And that's really where we have to get back to. Again, we got to get back to the point where the village is so loving. The village is the ecosystem that not only that the elders need, but also that the children need to become the people that God has purposed them to be.
Now, some will make an argument like, yeah, there was some people growing up, they were throwing the towel, but the overarching value in the community or in the village was, it takes what? A village to raise a child. We ain't throwing in the towel. We not throwing in the towel, right? And I remember, man, if you went to Bryant, it was this brother there, right? If you did something wrong, he was like, come on down here and let me give you a little bit of love. And y'all knew who that was, right?
Well, foolishness was born in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction
come
on from me. Boy, bend over and let me give you a little love.
Come on, man. You know the routine. You know it. Reverend Wade would get you, man, but he would let you know at the end of the day, I love you, son.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. You know, and boy, you know, but that's just what it was. It was love. It was love, and no matter what. Matter of fact, it didn't matter whether you were an athlete or you didn't have any sense whatsoever. You could feel the love that Reverend Wade had for you. He was the great equalizer. I remember there were times when people would want to fight.
Yeah.
Wade would make you go to the gym and put on the boxing gloves.
Or wrestle.
And then when y'all was done. And he made you shake hands and he said, I bet not catch y'all out there fighting. And guess what? More times than not, there wasn't another fight.
And you wouldn't even have, man, he wouldn't even have to know about it. If another student went down and said, Reverend Wade, Todd, and Patrick, they was arguing in class talking about fighting, he would give a pass and have you come to his gym at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, son, but you begin to see again, what began to happen, that the village began to take care because there was always value. And I know it says it takes a village to raise a child, but the reality of the situation that I believe that we're always somebody's child. And that we don't ever get to the point where we have arrived or we can't be taught or we can't learn or we can't change. I'm just of the belief that there is always an opportunity, but only if there's still value in that person, if there's something redemptive about that person. If you don't believe that there's any redemptive value in somebody, of course, throwing in the towel become the easier thing to do. See, I don't go in the towel with nobody because I remember that used to be me.
There you go.
And maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's why I have more empathy than most, because I remember when I was the kid who wouldn't listen. I remember I was the kid who started cussing in the second grade and made everybody quit cussing by noon because I had won the cussing contest. I remember having the gift of gab and talking to grown people like I could be around them. But yet and still, I didn't have the wherewithal of understanding what it was. But there were people who, even though they felt like they were getting dumber, the more that they gave me, why do I remember it now?
Exactly. Because they continued to pour into you. And here's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to make it real short. they fought through their frustration. They were frustrated with you for the moment, but they saw that you had value. And so they fought through their frustration and continued to pour into you. And so while my mother said, you know, the more I teach you, the dumber I get, she continued to pour into me even to this day because she sees my value.
Mm.
I think the other thing is, man, our family came up in a agrarian time, right? They understood the concept of agriculture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you plant the seed, right? And then you tend to it, right? And that's a process. But then when we move from, I mean, you know, you got to what? Fertilize it. Well, you know, that was natural fertilizer, right? Water it, give it some sun, and then you had to weed it, right?
That's right.
There you go.
And so I think that's kind of how they looked at raising children. It was a process, right? You got to do hard work, right? If you want to see the fruits of that plant, right, and bear the benefits of that plant, you got to put some time into it. But then when we shift to an industrial and now a technological, right, mindset, it's like in industrial, like you just do the work and then the output will take place. And in the technological framework, you just put the input in, push some buttons, and then it comes out, right? There's not a lot of hard work. And people make this argument, but it's different from the mindset that our family had coming from the South.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But speaking about the technological mindset, if you put stupid in, you get stupid out.
And that's exactly right. As soon as you input stupidity is liable to come out somewhere in them ones and zeros. You putting in that code. And with that, y'all, we're gonna take our next break. You're listening to The Front Porch. We'll be right back, y'all.
My grandma